So much so that the former leader and First Minister, Alex Salmond, has compared the contest to the Titanic. So does he think the eventual winner is doomed to fail? And what would that mean for the dream he's strived towards for decades? Alex Salmond, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. It's such an important time in Scottish politics. And I want to start off with Nicola Sturgeon's surprise resignation as SNP leader and also First Minister last month. For many years, you were the closest of allies, and together you built this formidable electoral machine in the SNP. Now's your chance to pay tribute to her.
Well, I mean, as I've said, I mean, Nicola's both as an election winner and as a communicator is one of the most formidable politicians there has been over the last while. And both of these attributes were amply demonstrated through her career.
And what will her legacy be?
That's more difficult. Because, I mean, obviously, an SNP politician or a Scottish independence politician, you know, you have to look for the legacy as how close you advance towards that goal. There, I think, Nicola's, you'd have to say that, you know, Scotland is not any closer to independence than it was in 2014. Certainly the dial hasn't shifted greatly. Elections have been won in the interim, but the dial in independence hasn't been shifted. Now, that's, of course, a hard criteria to judge politicians. You know, it's bigger, because most politicians, I mean, a UK politician would largely be judged by how many elections they do win. But I think somebody who believes in Scottish independence, as I do and Nicola does, would want to be judged by how close you advance towards that goal or that dream. So
you clearly didn't agree on her strategy, but her leaving Scottish politics in this way, in terms of the leadership at least, I mean, it's the end of an era, isn't it, of you and then her? And I know that you didn't really like each other by the end, but is there any sadness? Do you look back in sadness now about how the relationship ended?
Well, of course, but I mean, you know, that's something between Nicola and myself. But the important point for the other 5.5 million Scots, and particularly the supporters of independence, is a combination which was taking Scotland, looked like an inexorable march to independence, is now very much up in the air.
Just two more things on this. Do you think that Nicola Sturgeon exiting in the way she's exited with no obvious successor has let the cause down?
She's made things extremely difficult for her successors, in the sense that they've been plunged in at the deep end. Now, they may swim. You know, not everybody gets flung in the deep end sinks, and they're talented individuals, but they've got a very short period of time.
I'd like to talk to you about the candidates. Before I do, Peter Morrell, SNP Chief Executive, given what you've just said, do you think he should stay in post?
Well, no, I don't. But, I mean, I'm not really the person to ask. It's the candidates, the next leader.
But because of the way in which this has been handled, you mean?
Well, Peter, obviously, you know, I didn't think Peter should stay in post back in 2014. I think it's one of the reasons why, you know, Peter hasn't held me in any regard since, because I didn't think it was an appropriate combination to have the leader of a party and a country while simultaneously, you know, as at least one of the candidates, and perhaps two of them have said in this contest, it wouldn't be decided as reasonable in any business organisation. And there's question marks over it. Now, there's particular question marks now. So I don't think so. But, you know, look, that's not really for me. That's, you know, that's for the SNP and the SNP candidates.
And let's move on to the leadership. Let's talk about Kate. Kate Forbes had a tough start over those remarks around gay marriage. You're a Christian. Does it concern you that her ideas about gay marriage and sex outside marriage seem to have essentially disqualified her from the chance of becoming leader and First Minister?
Oh, I don't think she's disqualified, but she's had a rough start. I don't think... well, let's continue the theme. Her position is irredeemable. But you know, I think it would be of great concern, not just to me, but if people's religious convictions or lack of convictions disqualified them from a leadership position in a political party. On the other hand, Kate, as I've seen from her more recent pronouncements, has got to explain better the very reasonable distinction you make between a private faith and public policy. And now that that distinction's been made, hopefully people are more comfortable about it. Well, one of the differences, I mean, I introduced equal marriage, and we did it before any other country in these islands. Yeah. And when we did it back in 2011, 2012, it was quite controversial.
I want to ask you about Hamza Yousaf, and he's now the favourite to win. He took advantage of Forbes' troubles and criticised her position on gay marriage. Now, as you were saying, you were the First Minister legislating for same-sex marriage back in 2014 when Mr Yousaf was in your cabinet. He voted for equal marriage initially, but he later missed a crucial vote on that legislation. Did he or anyone on his behalf ever get in touch with you as First Minister back in 2014 to discuss that final vote?
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Well, I've been very reluctant to get involved in this because, it's an internal SNP leadership battle, and I really don't have a dog in this race, and anything I say, people say, oh, he's only saying that because he's leader of ALPA,
but you were the First Minister at the time, so you will know.
Yes.
So what happened?
Well, I mean, my memory is that I was contacted 10 days or so before the vote, when the vote was known, and told that Hamza was arranging a ministerial appointment. I've discussed it with people who were with me at the time, so I know their memory is the same as mine.
But what was the reason that was given to skip the vote?
Well, I didn't discuss the thing at great length. It was the assumption there was pressure. There's a lot of religions.
Pressure.
Well, a lot of religions were canvassing and opting. There's no secret that there was that, but it was a free vote and people could do it. Like I had ministers who were against equal marriage and who voted against equal marriage, and they continued as ministers.
Sorry, but you're saying that there was pressure. Mr Yousaf was under pressure, and that was communicated.
Lots of people
directly or through a third party. That was communicated to you.
But lots
under
of people,
pressure from the Muslim community.
But and no doubt other communities as well. I mean, look, that aspect of it to me is irrelevant. It was a conscious vote, a free vote. Hamza had made his general views on the issue perfectly clear in the first reading vote, and it was totally uncontroversial.
It was a conscious vote,
Yeah,
but
conscious
can I
vote,
just... This is what I'm just going to play it, because this is what his explanation was, if I may. This is from Conor Gillis, our Scotland correspondent.
I've told you what that business was. You asked me quite rightly earlier this week, well, what was that business? It was a Scot who was on death row for blasphemy in Pakistan that we were desperately trying to get released. A series of meetings needed with the Pakistani government and Pakistani...
No other day in your diary, no other point in your diary, you couldn't have rearranged that to make such a historic vote in the Scottish Parliament.
Again, I made the historic vote in stage one.
Were you under pressure, though, by religious groups at that point? Let's just clear that up. What representations were made to you from religious groups? Because the timing, from your opponent's point of view, looks very suspect.
Look, a couple of things. First of all, I think every single member of the Scottish Parliament was lobbied by not just faith groups, there was a number of other groups who opposed equal marriage at the time. I was no different. But I also speak to my community, and the Muslim community in particular, I speak to them very often about the positions that I take. Some will agree, some will disagree, but to think that the Muslim community has one homogenous view, I think would be incorrect.
So I just want to clarify this because it matters about the leadership contest, I think. Did he miss the vote because of religious pressure and he didn't want to go to the vote, or was it a meeting?
No, look, you asked me what my memory was. Was I contacted to say that Hamza had arranged a governmental meeting on the day of the vote, and that was sometime before the vote? The answer is yes, I remember that. But, his memory, may be different from mine. Let's put it that way.
What do you mean?
Well, he seems to have a different recollection from what I do or what Alec Neil has. So be it.
But just to be clear, your recollection was that it was a conscience vote, but that vote was missed because of religious pressure, that it was a vote that Mr Yousaf perhaps wanted to avoid. Well, that's your recollection.
Well, that's my recollection.
OK. The reason I'm asking you is because Mr Yousaf has used Kate Forbes' position on gay marriage to criticise her.
Yeah,
And then there's a point about whether or not he, for religious reasons, was trying to dodge that vote. And that matters, because that's about being truthful.
Like, my observation...
That's why it matters.
My observation is he did that once, and he shouldn't have done that, in my view. But, you know, most of the stuff that's been aimed at Kate was, you know, the various, I don't know, what you call them, acolytes or whoever it was from behind the scenes. And incidentally, for all the candidates, all three candidates, it would be a tremendous idea. And this is the last piece of advice I'm going to give to the SNP leadership election. Call off that sort of stuff. It does them no good.
And in terms of you and the SNP in your future, do you rule out ever joining or rejoining? Is that chapter in your independence journey now closed, rejoining the SNP? Do you completely rule it out?
Well, I mean, it's unwise to ever rule anything out in politics, but my focus on... I mean, look, I've been in favour of independence all my life. And for the vast majority of that, I pursued it through the SNP. I hold the SNP in enormous affection. But, you know, I lead a political party, ALPA, which I think is a substantial role to play.
Have you had any contact with Ash Reagan since Nicola Sturgeon's departure?
I mean, I'm not going to talk about the conversations I've had, but if you let's talk about all three candidates. I've been, as I've already explained to you, for reasons. I know Hamza well because he used to work for me, apart from anything else. You know, I know the two women less well, but I've spoken to them both. But I'm not going to tell you when. And I wish all three candidates well in the contest.
Let me just ask you about the couple more things. The coronation stone. The Stone of Destiny, or coronation stone, was returned to Scotland in 1996, and now it's needed to go back to England for King Charles's coronation. But you don't think that it should be allowed to go, do you? Well,
it's not my most serious policy that I'm putting forward, Beth. But, you know, in a context where the legitimate desire of people in Scotland to at least have a referendum on self-determination is being denied by the Westminster government, I don't really see why any Scottish government should just meekly say, we'll give you back the property which you stole 700 years ago.
So would you urge whoever wins this contest, whoever becomes First Minister, to refuse to allow that stone to go back to Westminster Abbey?
I probably would, actually, but the authorities will probably whip it away before the contest is finalised. That's the sort of... I mean, that was the kind of underhand trick that was stolen in the first place.
Alexander, I've got one more question for you. Independence once seemed within touching distance. You managed to secure that independence referendum. At the moment, it looks like it's a more distant dream. Do you still think it will come in your lifetime?
Yes, it will. And as someone said, the dream shall never die.
OK. Alex Salmond, thank you so much for your time.
Great pleasure.
Thank you.